You know things are getting bad and things are getting desperate out there when rich people are now turning to shopping at the dollar store. That's right, you heard me correctly. Both Dollar General and the Dollar Tree are drawing in more middle and higher income customers these days, and this started to happen a couple of months ago according to the company's latest quarterly reports that just came out this week. Dollar Tree executives just said on an earnings call this week that higher income customers have been a meaningful growth driver in recent months, and just in the first fiscal quarter alone added 2.6 million new shoppers. And many of these households are people who are earning $100,000 a year or more. Dollar General says they're seeing more high-income shoppers who are visiting the stores more often, and they're spending more and buying more discretionary items compared to the chain's core customer demographic. And what Dollar General thinks is happening is that they're attracting more and more high-income people so that way they can maximize their value and maximize how far their dollars go. I mean, that's the reason everybody shops at the dollar store, isn't it? Now, according to Deloitte's Consumer Signals survey, the percentage of wealthy respondents saying that they believe they will have enough money to live their best lives in 5 years' time fell to 58% in April, when in December last year it was at 65%. That's a noticeable decline in such a short period of time. Also, the percentage of high-income respondents concerned about inflation rose to 76%, the highest reading since October of 2023. So clearly, more people, even though you have more money, are starting to worry about the current state of the economy and are doing everything they can to stretch their dollar thin. It doesn't mean that they're going broke. It means that they are worried and they're going to be cutting back on their spending, and that's how they're doing it. They are shopping at places where the spending goes further. It makes perfect sense. When times get tough, it's not uncommon to see people turn to cheaper alternatives for basically everything that people buy. In fact, Walmart has been going through the same thing. We covered this a couple of months ago, that more and more high-income people are shopping at Walmart as well in order to maximize their dollar. So the point I want to make with all of this is you wouldn't be seeing this type of behavior if people weren't concerned about the economy. If people who were making good money felt good about things, they wouldn't be trying to maximize their dollar. They would just continue spending as usual, and their spending patterns wouldn't change. One of the economists from Citigroup also recently pointed out that they're seeing weaker investments in housing, declining home prices, and downward revision to the first quarter consumer spending, and rising continuing jobless claims, which reflect that jobs are harder to get once a person has been laid off, which we're going to jump into here in just a minute. In fact, take a look at all these headlines that Richard sent to me. Richard's always sending me all these stories, and literally I can't believe how many there are that he sent me just in the past week. And here's just a few of them here, some of these headlines, you know. Smithland Pet and Garden Centers closing after 40 years of business. Fast casual chain closing more than a dozen locations this year. Longtime Madison grocery store closing after 40 years. Several Liberty Bank locations to close in Connecticut. Famous New York Italian restaurant closing after 58 years. I got another one that said TD Bank is closing down like 30 locations this year. And the amount of job loss that's been happening so far in 2025 has been pretty shocking. You know, U.S. employers have been shedding jobs at record speeds this year. Employers just revealed that there was 94,000 job cuts just in May of 2025 alone, according to Challenger, Gray, and Christmas. And actually, that was a small decline from the amount of jobs that were lost in April. But get this, the May job losses was a 47% increase compared to May of 2024, just 1 year ago. In fact, just under 700,000 layoffs have been announced over the first 5 months of the year, which is an 80% increase from the same time period last year, guys. 80% more job losses this year. That is mind-blowing when you think about it. It's no wonder that even people who make a lot of money are turning towards buying cheaper alternatives at places like Walmart and the dollar store, because you never know when it's going to be your turn. Having a high-paying job and being a high-income earning individual doesn't make you immune to these problems with the economy. But if you've been saving and you've been smart and you have investments and you have an emergency fund, even if you do find yourself in that situation, you should be okay versus somebody who doesn't have any of those things. Do you ever wonder today why we get so many spam text messages, spam emails, and all the junk mail that comes to your doorstep in your mailbox? Well, that's because of data brokers, and that's why today's video is sponsored by Delete Me. Delete Me is a hands-free subscription service that will remove your information that's being sold online, and Delete Me's privacy experts remove you from hundreds of data broker websites all year long. And for example, when you look at my latest report from Delete Me here, they have reviewed in total over 38,000 listings across the internet on my behalf to make sure that my information is not just hanging out there. And they have removed so many different listings that there's only 5 data brokers left that have my information. 5. That's it. Going from hundreds before. And they're in the process of removing my information from their websites as well. So make sure you get 20% off your Delete Me subscription today by using my link down in the description below at joindeleteme.com/boardingarrow or use the QR code on the screen. According to Challenger Gray and Christmas, they say that tariffs, funding cuts, consumer spending, and overall economic pessimism are putting intense pressure on companies' workforces, and companies are now spending less, hiring slowly, and sending out layoff notices. That seems to be pretty much what I'm hearing, guys, and that's what I see from everything that you guys sent me. Every time I turn around, there's a new story about businesses closing down, about branches closing down, about people losing jobs. This is just going to be the norm for the next couple of years. And it turns out that retail and tech are basically neck and neck when it comes to the amount of layoffs. So far in retail, there's been about 76,000 layoffs this year, and in tech, there's been about 75,000. So literally 150,000 people, just those two sectors of the economy alone, fired since January. It's also being reported that about 40% of all these job cuts are directly related to the DOGE department and all of their efforts to try and cut back on government spending, which I think is kind of funny considering that they're trying to pass this big, beautiful bill that's going to contribute a couple more $1 trillion to the deficit. So this doesn't really make any sense, but we're not going to get into that. And this data came out at the same time that we just got the jobless claims that came in at 247,000 jobless claims as of the week ending May 31st, which is the highest reading since October of 2024. So things aren't getting better. And now because of all this bad economic news, the CME Group's FedWatch is predicting that we're going to see the first rate cut in September this year of a 25 basis point rate cut. So we'll see if that's going to happen, guys. It's funny because September last year is when they actually started cutting rates and abruptly paused once they realized that inflation was still a major problem and it wasn't going away. And by the time you see this video, probably the latest jobs report will be out from the Labor Department, and they're expecting 130,000 jobs gained in the latest report. So we'll see. It doesn't really matter anyways, because I've shown you guys time and time again how these jobs reports are usually wrong, and the data needs to be revised down heavily in order to reflect how many jobs were truly created. But if you are somebody who's worried about this right now, I highly recommend checking out CourseCareers. They can help you land a job in a field that's actually hiring right now, where there's room for advancement and where you can potentially make more than you're making now. And I have a link for that down below for anyone who's interested. And you know who's going to be right there to take advantage of this whole situation with people losing jobs and the economy not doing so well? Buy now, pay later companies. In fact, Klarna just made it easier than ever to get a buy now, pay later loan. It was already easy before, but now it's going to be even easier because you can get a Klarna debit card where you can go ahead and charge things just like you would a credit card, but instead you're getting a buy now, pay later loan when you use that card. Now, the only thing that's good about this is that it is like a debit card in the sense that you can actually load funds onto the card and you don't actually have to use the buy now, pay later feature of it if you don't want to. But let's be realistic, the reason that people get this card is so that they can use the buy now, pay later feature. Right now, Klarna says they're just testing it in certain parts of the US, and if it's successful, they're gonna roll it out nationwide and to parts of Europe pretty soon. And basically how this works is they're going to charge you a little extra if you decide to take the option where you want to pay for something in 4 installments. They're going to charge you a $1 to $3 fee just for using that feature. And get this, they have a membership option. Depending on the tier of membership you choose, if you go for the member status of membership, they give you 2.82% APY on your Klarna balance. And if you go for the Plus membership, they give you 3.22% APY on your Klarna balance. And these memberships range from $3.50 a month to $8 a month. So you're paying a membership fee to use this card so that way you can get interest. How does that make any sense? Like the scams they come up with today and the schemes to get people to spend money is just completely unreal. And I have a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that this stuff even exists or why somebody would use it. So when you look at the way that these interest programs work is you're essentially signing up so that way you can get paid interest on the money you deposit. So you could deposit, say, $250 a month into your Klarna account for a year, and that would give you $3,000 at the end of the year. And if you didn't spend it, you'd earn about $44 in interest, but you would have paid $96 a year to have the card and to have the membership. So how does that make any sense? Like, why would anybody do this, you know? Like they form all of these offers and gimmicks and try to make it look like it's a good deal for people. Like, hey, if you're gonna go out and spend and you can't always afford the things you're buying, this is a great alternative. And it kind of uses all this trickery to get people convinced that, yeah, this is a good idea, I should sign up for that. When in reality, if you're somebody who needs to do this, you should just be paying cash for everything. There's no benefit for somebody using this card, guys. These are all just tricks and scams to get you to spend money that you don't have and convince people that they can afford things that they really can't. Need another sign that the economy is not looking too hot? Well, here's one for you. More people are cooking at home now, which is actually the highest level of people cooking at home since the pandemic. On a recent earnings call from Campbell's, the CEO said that they've seen more people opting for home-cooked meals than they have since the start of the pandemic. Now, the reason Campbell says this is because they're seeing the sales for their food and beverages in all their different categories going up right now. Specifically in the US, the spending is up for pasta sauce, broths, and condensed and canned soups. So people are looking for very cheap meal alternatives to make lots of food on the cheap at home. According to Campbell's, not only do they look at their sales data, but they also use interviews with consumers and behavioral data collected by research companies to assess at what rate people are actually cooking at home. So it's not just like, oh, we see the sales of these items going up, more people must be cooking at home. It's more nuanced than that, and they actually take a deep dive look into what's causing this to happen, and this is what they're finding out. You know, the worst part is this isn't like a shift that, oh, more people are tired of going out, you know, we want to eat healthier, so we're just going to cook at home. No. This is people doing this because they don't have the money to go out and eat. They have to do this in order to stretch the dollar. Even the Campbell CEO admitted, this is a quote from him, saying, "It's definitely not a sign of the economy doing great. People aren't going to be loading up on the staples and eating at home far more often if they're feeling flush." That's right. That's exactly right. So don't take it from me, guys. Take it from the CEO of Campbell's. Like, it's not really in their best interest to say that things aren't doing good. It's in their best interest to capitalize on it, which they're doing, and they're the ones selling all these products and making extra money because of it. But this guy's smart enough to realize that this is a sign of a bad economy. And you got to remember, 80% of our GDP here in this country come from consumer spending. So if less people are spending going out, well, that must mean that they don't have the money to do it. You know, I just ran into one of the neighbors here on this island over here in Venetian Isles, and he was asking me, Michael, he's like, what's going on? I don't see a slowdown in the economy. I'm like, well, what are you referring to? And he's like, well, look around. You see all these yachts. All the restaurants around here are packed. You know, people are still buying these $10 million houses. I'm like, what? That's not a reflection of reality. That's not a reflection of what, you know, 99% of people are doing right now. The people who are doing that are the ultra rich that have moved here to Miami that could care less, that don't have a care in the world and are going to spend even if there's an apocalypse on our hands, you know? But I can see the mindset of somebody who lives around here and seeing the behavior of all their neighbors and the people around here just spending money like there's no tomorrow and thinking like, what recession? What's going on? And I've seen many comments of people say the same thing here on the channel, and it can be very misleading, right? It makes people think that, well, what, am I the only one who's going broke? No, you're not. But a lot of people are spending beyond their means, or if you're in an area like this, you know, these people are just filthy rich. And it makes it look like everyone has money when you see a yacht full of 30 people. But just understand, that is not a reflection of reality in any way, shape, or form. And one other warning sign that the economy isn't doing too well right now is JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon said that he's predicting a crack in the bond market sooner than later. And this is mainly due to the US national debt. He says that a fiscal reckoning is inevitable at this point, and even though the timeline is unclear, it's probably going to happen within the next 6 months to a year. The deficit's already is worse than ever. They're looking at adding an extra 2.7 trillion to the deficit over the next 10 years if this big beautiful bill gets passed, and the treasury yields continue to remain steady and even creep up with all this news surrounding the economy. In fact, right now the government's getting so desperate about the situation that they're even looking at loosening up capital rules to help banks absorb more of the treasuries, because people don't want these treasuries. That's why the yields are going up, because they have to offer a higher interest rate to convince people out there to buy them. The last treasury auction was very weak, and what ended up happening is the Fed had to print more money to be able to buy a lot of those treasuries that went unsold. So they're artificially keeping these treasury yields even lower than they really should be at right now, which isn't a surprise either. So basically, the United States needs to get its act together and do it quickly before we become a third world country. And you know, the worst part is it seems like no one's really going to do anything about it until it's too late, until we already are the third world country, until we lose that reserve currency status, and something really bad like that's going to happen for us to turn things around. But then by that time, it's too late. I heard this quote recently that I thought was very interesting from Winston Churchill that goes something like, Americans can be trusted to do the right thing after every single other option has been exhausted. And that seems exactly how our country's being run right now. The only time we're actually going to do what actually needs to be done is once we exhaust all the other options and we make our currency worthless and we make all of our residents dirt poor. And the saddest part is it's not too late to turn the ship around. We could do it right now with some real fiscal responsibility, but the big question mark is, are we actually going to do it? The way things are looking right now, my money is on no. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.